Hi guys, this is a video that has gone viral in the past few days. And the incident occurred in Kerala, where a man was protesting against the increasing number of potholes in the roads in Kerala. Actually, it was a unique way of protesting where the representative of that region was passing through the road. So this kind of unique protest has to be made in order to reach the issue to the higher echelon of our administrative system. Similar type of incidents are happening throughout the urban centers for in Bangalore, Chennai and everywhere. So this is the example of how poor our governance system is. Okay. So on this backdrop, I invite you all for today's editorial discussion and news analysis of VLAN IAS dated 13th August 2022. So let's start today's discussion. So let's discuss the first news for today's discussion. So the first news is about Taiwan's issue. So India has said that avoid unilateral action in Taiwan and wanted Taiwan's status quo. So New Delhi demands for an de-escalation in the tension. Recently, China has started mock military drill around Taiwan Strait. So this is causing serious concern among the nations in littoral nations around the Taiwan Strait and also in the nations in the Indian Ocean region. Recently, the news came where Chinese has used Hambantota port of Sri Lanka in order to park and park a naval ship of China there. So it is concerned about the development happening post this Taiwan issue. So what's the context of this issue all about? It all erupted after the visit of House of Speaker Nancy Pelosi of USA, and China began a military drill post that Chinese vessels are just across the median line of the Taiwan Strait. China is frequently violating the air line of Taiwan. Okay. So this topic was detailedly discussed on the editorial discussion of 3rd August 2022. Please go through that discussion for much more details. So this is the location of Taiwan actually, and these are the important Taiwan Strait, which separates China, mainland China with Taiwan, and comes to the important South China Sea, where dispute is happening, then Philippine Sea and East China Sea. Please have a look on the map. This is actually the location of Taiwan, and these are the regions where there are naval bases of the USA around this Taiwan, South Korea. So USA is encircling China with naval bases throughout the littoral region of South China and Taiwan and South Korea. So in order to gain the security and natural resource supremacy of the region, China is trying to have a hegemony over South China Sea by building artificial islands over here. This is the main issue of the South China Sea dispute, and this island chain which the US have by building the naval bases is known as First Island Chain against China. So this is all for the news discussion of the first news. Now let's look in the next news for today's discussion. So next news is about the eco-sensitive zone. So what is the context? Center is going to file a review petition in Supreme Court. Mainly, the section protect directive to notify eco-sensitive zone of minimum 1 kilometer from the demarcated boundaries of protected areas. So it is mainly concerned with demarcation of boundary from the protected areas. Okay, this was the main issue. So this was Ministry's update on this. On World Elephant Day 2022 will be celebrated at Peria. So it will be celebrated at Peria National Park. So elephants is critical to the sustenance of wildlife and biodiversity. Government of India is recognizing the welfare of the people is at the heart of elephant conservation. So this conservation effort will include both animals and humans as a whole. So World Elephant Day 2022 is celebrated at Periyar, Kerala, in the presence of the Union Minister, who is the Union Minister Sri Bhupendranath Yadav. Okay. So Union Minister further said that India has 31 elephant reserves. So currently how many elephant reserves are there in India? There are around 31 elephant reserves. In the last 3 years, the Dendeli Elephant Reserve has been notified by the state of Karnataka. It can be come in your match the following: Singpan in Nagaland and Lumru in Chhattisgarh. So please take note of these last 3 reserves. It is also notified in PAV also, so it is very important. He also shared that India is going to witness the establishment of one more elephant reserve, that is Agasthyamala in Tamil Nadu. So one more elephant reserve will be coming at Agasthyamala in Tamil Nadu. Okay, this was the news on Elephant Day. Okay, this was the Twitter release of announcing another elephant reserve in Tamil Nadu. So let's look into what this World Elephant Day is all about. It is an international annual event. Okay, so it is not a national one. It is an international annual event mainly for preservation and protection of wild elephants. What is the goal? The goal of the World Elephant Day is to create awareness on the elephant conservation and also to share knowledge, positive solutions for the better protection. So it includes conservation, knowledge sharing, and protection. Okay. So now let's look into eco-sensitive zone. So what this eco-sensitive zone is all about? The origin has come from the National Wildlife Action Plan of 2002 and 2016 of the Ministry of Environment and Forest Climate Change. What this National Wildlife Action Plan said is stipulated that government should declare land falling within 10 kilometers of the boundaries of national park and wildlife sanctuaries as ecologically fragile zone. That means if there is a national park or wildlife sanctuary here, the boundary within the radius of 10 kilometer radius will be considered as an ecologically fragile region. Okay, so in order to protect this ecologically fragile region, this eco-sensitive zone are declared, under which acts it is very important that this eco-sensitive zone gets a statutory backing under Environmental Protection Act of 1986. So eco-sensitive zone gets a statutory backing under Environmental Protection Act of 1986. Okay. So what is the purpose for having such a demarcation? So declaring an ecologically sensitive zone around the national park, forests and sanctuaries will act as a shock absorber. That means if he so maybe the national park and protection will be there. So when we start demarcating eco-sensitive zone, any change or any alteration happening in the biodiversity around this national park can be absorbed after declaring this ecologically sensitive zone. So it will act as a shock absorber. And these zones would act as a transition zone from areas of high protection, those involving lesser protection. So it will act as a transition zone because this will be an area of high protection, and those on outside this area will be area of low protection. So we can demarcate the amount of degree of protection that can be given. So let us look into what are the important activities that are allowed. The first category of activities which are prohibited. These are commercial mining, industries causing pollution, and establishment of hydroelectric projects. And commercial use of wood is also banned. So that means we can use the wood for our daily use, like collecting timber for household work, etc. So tourism activities like hot air balloon around national park, discharge of effluents and hazardous substances is also prohibited. So now let's look at the activities which are regulated. That means it can be carried out but only at certain degree, such as felling of trees, establishment of hotels and resorts, commercial use of natural water, then erection of electric cables, and drastic change in agriculture system. For example, heavy technology use, pesticides, and widening of roads. So these are certain activities that are regulated. So now let's look into what are the activities that can be permitted. First and foremost is agriculture and horticulture practices. Of course, there are maybe tribal people living around that area, and these practices are very much essential as their livelihood. Okay, rainwater harvesting is essential. Organic farming is also essential. Renewable energy sources. Okay, green technology activities. That means, and this solar, etc., is very much essential for the energy conservation. So, why such? What is the significance of having an ecologically sensitive zone? First and foremost is it will minimize the impact of development activities. Thus, it can minimize the impact of urbanization and other development activities around SCZ. So, that means it will absorb, act as shock absorber, that we already said, shock absorber. So any urbanization or any impact of this can be absorbed so that the protected area will remain within its integrity. Next one is in situ conservation. The ecologically sensitive zone help in situ conservation, which deals with conservation of endangered species in its natural habitat. That means if there is a species, it is conserved within its natural habitat, and there will be habitat, and it will be conserved within that habitat. Now, example for this is one horned rhino as Kaziranga National Park. And another more significant aspect is it will minimize the man-animal conflict. Surely, it will minimize man-animal conflict because it will reduce the human interference in the region, and more animals can use their habitat for food and other activities. So then the next aspect is what are the main challenges to ecological sensitive zone. First and more is developmental activities. Especially on the name of development activity, there will be construction of roads, dams, urban and rural infrastructure, which have a negative impact on the environment and imbalance on the ecological system. Next one is governance and new law. Also, Environmental Protection Act gives a statutory backing along with Wildlife Protection Act, but both ignores the forest communities' rights and fails to stop the poaching of animals. So this is an important lacuna within government and new laws. Then is tourism. To cater the increasing demand of ecotourism, land around the parks is being cleared for deforestation, displacement of local people. Then another challenge is introduction of exotic species. Exotic species means species like eucalyptus acacia, which has not an origin of that region, may be introduced, and it will wipe out the native species of that region through competition. Then another one is the global challenge like climate change. Climate change is creating ecological stress of these areas. Example is forest fire and Assam floods in Kaziranga National Park. Then challenge to local communities, especially their agriculture practice like shifting cultivation and the increasing pressure of population is also having an impact on the ecological sensitive zone. So what should be the way forward? So one and foremost way forward is having a stakeholder approach. That means building consensus. State should act as a trustee from benefit of the general public in relation to natural resources. And sustainable, it should be act within sustainable development framework. That means state should act as a trustee on the framework of SDG. Then government should confine its role to that of a facilitator and immediate application of fortune of the state. So frequent interference of government should be reduced. Practices like afforestation and reforestation should be practiced on degraded forests, land and large habitats. And also awareness and propagating conservation techniques should be made in order to empower the local communities. This was all the discussion for that eco-sensitive zone news. Now let's look into the next news for today's discussion. So next news is about manual scavengers. So Ministry of Social Justice and Environment is now preparing to undertake a nationwide survey to enumerate people engaged as sewers and septic tank cleaners. So recently, government missions like AMR and new schemes like National Action Plan for Mechanized Ecosystem (Namaste) was launched in order to mitigate the hardship of these manual scavengers. So this is an important scheme which is in news. Please take note of it. Namaste scheme. It is undertaken jointly by which ministries? Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and Ministry of Social Justice and Environment. Okay. So let us look into what this manual scavenging is. It is defined as the removal of human excrement from public streets and dry latrine, cleaning septic tanks, gutters and sewers. So it is a type of labor work that is done by very low class people in the society. So then the next question arises, why such prevalence of manual scavenging? The first is the indifferent attitude. A number of independent surveys shows that there is a continued reluctance on the part of state government to admit that practice prevails under their watch. So many of the state government is not aware of the practice happening around their jurisdiction. As is issues due to outsourcing. Many times local bodies outsource the sewer cleaning task to private contractors. However, many of them fly-by-night operators do not maintain proper roles of the social sanitation workers. So outsourcing of this job do not give the much information about the workers. In case after case of workers being assisted to death, the contractors have denied any association with the deceased. So there is no social security also. So this is a pathetic situation of people doing this work. Then the other aspect is social issue. The practice is driven by caste, class and income divides. Okay, Indian caste system where so-called lower castes are expected to perform job. In 1993, India banned the employment of people as manual scavengers by the Act of Employment of Manual Scavengers and Construction of Dry Latrine Prohibition Act of 1993. However, the stigma and discrimination still remains. So this is the main issue that's plugging in the social setup. So what are the steps taken to tackle the menace of manual scavenging? First and foremost is a legislative approach. That is, a bill was introduced, Prohibition of Employment of Manual Scavengers and their Rehabilitation Amendment Bill of 2020. What does the bill say? It proposes to completely mechanize the sewer cleaning and introduce a way for on-site protection and provide compensation for manual scavengers. At the same time, it also provides amendment to the previous law, that is, Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers and their Rehabilitation Act 2030. So what does this act say? This act again superseded the 1993 Act and goes beyond the prohibition of dry latrine and outlaws all manual excrement cleaning of insanitary latrines, open drains and pits. It made a more inclusive nature by having more type of variety of jobs of this nature in this ambit. Then another important legislative work is Building and Maintenance of Insanitary Latrine Act of 2030. So it mainly orders the municipal bodies or local areas to have construction and maintenance of unsanitary toilets and hiring anybody for their manual scavenging. So next is an important act, Prevention of Atrocities Act. So Prevention of Atrocity Act is a very important one. It also takes into account 90% of the people employed as manual scavengers. Also there is Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge as by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Then Swachhata Abhiyan app. It is mainly to identify and geotag the data of insanitary latrine. And also there is a Supreme Court judgment in 2014 where Supreme Court ordered it mandatory for the government to identify all those who died of sewage work since 1993 and a compensation of rupees 10 lakhs to be given to their families. So what will be the way forward? What can be the step forward? First and foremost is empowering local administration. Swachh Bharat mission was an eye-opening one, which identified the top priority area by 15th Commission, and funds were allocated for overcoming the problem of manual scavenging. So we must look into how efficiently the fund is utilized. Next one is social sensitization. To address the social sanction behind manual scavenging, it is required to first to acknowledge and then understand how and why manual scavenging is embedded in the country system. We must know the root cause why it is there in our caste system. The third aspect is state and society needs to be take interest. That means both state and society needs to take active interest in the issue. Okay. So this was all about the manual scavenging. Now again a social justice aspect news, where Center begins a scheme to rehabilitate beggars, and the scheme is known as Mile 75. So its initiative will cover several comprehensive welfare measures for persons who are engaged in an act of begging. So it is an important scheme. So Smile 75 initiative. Municipal corporation in collaboration with NGOs and other stakeholders will cover several comprehensive welfare measures for persons who are engaged in the act of begging, mainly focusing on the facilities like medical, counseling, education, skill development, etc. For this, the Ministry of Social Justice and Development is allocating around 100 crore for this SMILE project. So please look into this terms. What is this SMILE project all about? This will be asked in the prelims question. So the implementing ministry will be Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. What is component? It includes subscreen like comprehensive rehabilitation of person engaged in active begging. So what are the objectives? To make cities and towns begging free and strategy for comprehensive rehabilitation. These are the main objectives. So let us look into some of the stats of the beggars in India. According to Census 2011, there are around 4,13,670 beggars only in the official data only this much. So as the real data shows how much vulnerable the situation is. So the state which top in the stat is West Bengal, followed by Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Among the union territories, New Delhi is the largest of the beggars, followed by Chandigarh. And in the northeastern state, Assam is top the chart, followed by Mizoram. So this was all about that news. Now let's look into next news for today's discussion. So next news is an economical news. Usually the data comes every month. So what does industrial output growth shows? It shows an expansion from a year earlier. That means 2022 this year, 2021 last year. So it showed how much the production has come. So it shows an expansion. So it is a very positive sign. So this indicator mainly contributes to consumer demand and how our sectoral activities are going, mainly agri industry. So it is a positive sign, and there is a rise of 0.14% in the previous level. Okay, so we will have a deep look into it in the prelims analysis. What is this industrial production all about, and India's industrial output? What is it? We will look into our prelims pointer section. So this is all for today's discussion. Hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you. Please subscribe to the channel for future discussion.